Welcome, everybody, to the Studio Chatter podcast. We are back. It has been a little bit since we had our last episode. I'm going to let you guys know right now, family. It is not looking like I'm going to be able to get an episode up every single week like I was the last season, only because people are busy, I'm busy, and there's just so much going on this year. I guess making up for lost time, and, the pandemic is starting to lift, and so people are just more busy. And so it's not as easy to schedule guests to come on every single week. If there are weeks where I can't get a guest, every now and then I'll just come on and provide some updates or just kind of chat. But for the most part, definitely don't expect a new episode every single week. But this week, we have a very special guest, somebody who I've wanted on the show for quite some time, and that is singer-songwriter Kevin Chung. How are you, Kevin?
Ooh, I'm good. What's up, Craig?
It is good to have you here. Obviously, I've been a fan of yours for a long time, and I've had the pleasure of working with you. And I've had the pleasure of knowing you for a while. We've known each other for quite some time. And the record that I did, Save You, the record that I did with Mary Simmons, Kevin is the one singing on it. So, Kevin, I think you did a great job on that record.
Thank you so much. Great track, by the way.
Oh, I appreciate it. Definitely. We had a lot of fun working on that one, and you released a single in January called Where Do We Go From Here?
Yes, it's the second single off my newest EP. That'll be coming out in April, I believe.
You excited?
I am. This is my first EP as an artist, so I learned a lot. It was a lot of fun making, but yeah.
So who did you work with on this song?
Yeah, so I worked with these two guys called ZK Productions, Zach and Kenneth. They're from Tree Sound Studio in Atlanta.
Oh, nice.
Originally, but they're kind of doing their own thing now. But just a connect that I had, and they wanted to work with me. So I was like, you know what? Why don't we try this? I've been trying to do an EP for a while. So just sent them some demos and got in the studio and finished it. Yeah.
Wow, that's really nice.
Yeah.
So you're actually in the studio working with these guys. They're not just like sending you tracks and that sort of thing.
Yeah. So all the songs were, they were all just like little seeds of ideas. Just brought it to them and was like, hey, I don't know how I feel about these, but why don't we just see what happens? And we kind of just started from scratch pretty much. With these like little ideas, and came up with 5 songs.
Nice.
You know how it goes.
Yeah, it's a different dynamic actually working with a producer, because a lot of times these days, producers just send tracks and the artists will write to them and then record them. But it really is a different vibe when you're in the studio working with somebody.
Yeah, I like it a lot too, just because like you get to watch how the track changes. A lot of the songs I brought in, like they've been sitting around for a while, like me being stuck and overthinking them, and just having a fresh perspective on how the song could go and change is like probably my favorite part about songwriting and working with people.
Mm-hmm. And it was really cool, you working with a member of the VIP Sound Circle family, Justin Cho, on the track. A really, really great guitarist. And he's fantastic.
You got to get him on here.
Of course he's going to be on here at some point. The thing is, scheduling guests is weird. It really is weird. Like people who I'm very close friends with, I have trouble getting on here, and people I barely know I can get on here like in a week. So it's the weirdest thing. So it's just like, the pandemic is lifting and everybody's more busy now, but definitely Justin's going to be on here.
For sure.
Abso-freaking-lutely. He's been a longtime collaborator of yours, hasn't he?
Yeah, just from day one, I think from like when Chris and I were working. Oh, by the way, I think it'd be very cool to hear you and Chris on a podcast together.
It'll happen.
Yeah,
It'll happen.
yeah.
Again, everybody's busy. You know what I mean? Like my own brother. It's crazy, right? Like, people who I don't know very well have been on here who are super busy. Then I can't even get my own brother on here because he's just so busy all the time. So yeah, definitely. Justin and Chris will be on here. Like seriously, people part of our own team need to be on here. Yeah. But it was great listening to the track. It's a beautiful song. You guys definitely need to check it out. It's going to be in the description if you're listening to this on YouTube. I'm very curious about why you moved to Los Angeles, because you lived in Atlanta, Georgia for years, and obviously that's how we met. So what made you want to move to LA?
Yeah, so born and raised in Atlanta, there my whole life, and I think there's a lot of factors that kind of like went into it, right? I think a part of me did a lot of soul searching of like, man, what is it that I really want to do? I was working at a local church, and pretty much that was like my dream job growing up. I wanted to like do church music and like lead worship as a living and things like that. And I think it kind of came sooner than I wanted it to. Super thankful though. Like I think I was in a very good situation. I chased stability my whole life. And I think once I got it, it was kind of like, oh man, I feel like there's more left to experience, if that makes sense. Not necessarily like more to do. I mean, of course there's more to do, but I just felt like I didn't experience enough, if that makes sense. So as I was like stuck at home, I started making TikToks, just like really wanted to grow in the creative aspect. So I started posting like covers and like stupid like things, like on TikTok, and just having fun with it, just trying to see what happened. But I think my goal with all that was just to be consistent. And I think with consistency came a little bit of success with just like a following and like people noticing and like my music and things like that. So it was a moment for me to say like, oh man, I feel like there is definitely potential here. I think prior to this TikTok stuff was me just releasing one song a year, and I wanted to kind of up the ante a little bit, wanted to release more, write more, see what just like see what I could do as an artist. And I think because as the pandemic continued on a year later, so in Georgia, things started to open back up and I started to lose my time. Like the time that I had to work on music and work on covers and all these creative things. Not to say that my job wasn't creative. I think it was just like, oh man, I don't have that time anymore. So so I decided like, man, maybe it's the move right now, me being in my mid-20s, to kind of like put the job thing on pause and really like pursue the artist stuff, which is like a big scary decision. And I did consider like, I can do this in Atlanta. I very much so. I think that I could have. But there was something about wanting to be in a new city as well. I was born and raised in Atlanta. That's all I really knew. Didn't leave for college or anything like that. So I felt like the timing was right to kind of jump into a new city. But yeah, that's kind of like all the things that, a little brief kind of summary of all the things that led to my decision to move.
How are you liking it?
I love it. It's
really,
yeah, it's a lot of fun. I mean, there's like a lot of things that like I could complain about, like the driving and the traffic and how cluttered it is and things like that. But it's a lot of fun. I think every day I have to pinch myself and say like, man, I'm really in a different city. It's like not a vacation. Like this is home now. But it's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah, people have very mixed feelings about Los Angeles.
Yeah,
the one thing about LA is that everybody's going to feel some kind of way about it. I mean, some people love it. Some people can't stand it. Some people have mixed feelings about it. So my dear friend Bad Snacks, who was a guest on this show, we talked about LA.
Yeah.
And one of the things that she said is that she really likes LA as far as the community, as far as the music, and as far as just everybody is trying to live their dream in LA. And so there is a sense of belonging in LA that,
Right.
everybody's trying to make it. You don't feel like an outsider if you're a musician trying to make it. You
Right,
know what I
right.
mean? Because
Mhm.
everybody's a musician trying to make it. You can go to a Starbucks and the barista is probably a really good singer who is trying to make it,
Yeah, yeah.
Atlanta is one of those places where the people who have already made it do well there, but
Mhm.
like people who are trying to make it, there's not really a scene where like there's an indie music scene in LA like that. Not LA, but in Atlanta, but there
Right.
really is in Los Angeles.
Mhm.
But the one thing that she said is she didn't care for living in LA. She just didn't care for living there. She lived in the Highland Park area and she
Oh,
didn't
yeah,
like
yeah.
it,
Oh, I see.
And so it's a mixed bag, right?
Oh, for sure. Like
and-
parking
and-
is the
yeah.
worst out here.
So you've had really big success on TikTok. I mean, you've done really well on that platform. You have 300,000 followers.
It's like a solid amount. I don't want to like sound ungrateful, but I think I realized like, oh man, it just never stops. The chase for the following and things like that. But definitely, I think TikTok was my like break into like having the confidence to be able to say like, oh, I want to do this music thing,
Mhm.
But yeah.
Have you seen success from TikTok parlay into the other numbers like streaming and stuff like that?
Yeah, I think because the algorithm for TikTok is very like it doesn't end after you post. Like they recycle your content and things like that. So I think people are continually like, if they see my where do we go from here promo video, like even though I posted it like a couple weeks ago, people can still find it today. And I think that's kind of the cool thing where like people can rediscover and re-find my content that leads and points towards my streaming. But yeah, I mean, the virality, like the possibilities of going viral is pretty insane. So I think it definitely helps with streaming, helps with like growing a following and a fan base and things like that. But I will say, so I've been on Twitch more recently. I really love the community on Twitch. Like people are amazing, like just super nice, very, very much supportive, like financially with like the donations and subs and things like that. But also just so kind. Everyone's so kind. So I've really been loving Twitch nowadays.
Yeah, I streamed on Twitch, as you know, and I've seen you on Twitch, and you're doing your thing on Twitch, and it's going really well for you. I mean, I remember when you first started on Twitch, but TikTok is one of those things that when you go on the platform, people are instantly trying to get your attention.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
the people have a lot of mixed feelings about TikTok. Were you afraid that by going on TikTok, people might not take you as seriously as an artist?
Oh man, honestly, I didn't. I know that a lot of people, have said that, like, TikTok is like cringe and like no artist really wanted to like jump on it. But for me, it was kind of, I used it like a journal, if that makes sense. None of my friends were on TikTok. Nobody was using it that I knew. So all I did was post a video a day, and I said, that's my goal. Like I'm not trying to get famous. I'm not trying to like, get this huge following. I think nowadays, because so many people have said, if you're an indie artist, you need to be on TikTok promoting your music, blah, blah, blah. I think now it's like, oh shoot, there's so many more people like fighting for attention and fighting for spots pretty much. But for me, when I started, like, music was just kind of starting out. And for me, the whole goal of it was just to be consistent with posting, because I was struggling really hard with that. So I didn't really think about like, oh, what would other people say and things like that. I think I thought more about like, oh man, like what I thought about it, if that makes sense. Like my own view of myself.
So before you started working with ZK, you were recording yourself most of the time. Is that right? Like for a lot of your songs, you were recording yourself.
I was doing like little demos here and there. I think Chris was probably my number one producer that I would go to and like work with and things like that.
Yeah, Chris being my brother.
Yes.
Yeah,
Chris.
so yeah.
And just like all my songs were through Chris, and then through him I started learning how to like produce more and like growing the confidence to produce more. So I started making demos and things like that. But yeah, before ZK it was a lot of like solo, seeking different producers, different styles, things like that.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, people don't realize how difficult it is for an artist who doesn't have production. And like one of the reasons why I got into production is to help artists who are looking for production, who want a producer to work with. And so it's so glad that you were able to find people to work with, because you are very, very talented.
Thank you so much.
So the question that we ask every episode of the show, and I'm going to ask you, how did it all start? I want you to take me all the way back to the beginning. It ain't going to take that long because you're not that old. You're only 26. So how did you go from a little kid playing in church to the great artist Kevin Chung that we see today?
All right, man, where do I start?
Well, I mean, you can start from the beginning, because I mean, it ain't gonna take that long. You're really young.
So, I think it was around the 8th grade when I started making music, or I joined the church worship band, and I was just a vocalist, and I joined because whenever the female, singers would sing, I couldn't sing with them. I just sang the harmony, and I was like, oh, that's kind of cool. Like I felt like I had a natural ear for like the harmony. So part of me was like, you know what? I think I can do this worship thing. So I auditioned, and it was really bad. Just because you sing harmony doesn't mean you can, you know what I mean? So so I had an audition, and it was like I was so shaky, so nervous, did not enjoy singing in front of people. Like I was very much a closet singer, but barely, because I had just started. But the worship director guy was kind of like, you know what? We want to take everyone and we want to like develop you guys. And I was like, oh, cool. It almost felt like a participation trophy, just kind of like, oh, you're bad, but like we'll take you anyways. But it was just a lot of like, okay, like let's just see where things go from here. And I just joined the worship team. I loved being at church. I loved serving. I love the community aspect, but I really like was really loving like everything it was about. So I was singing, and then freshman year came along, and then sophomore year came, and I was just like singing. And then I picked up guitar around sophomore year, and I started like just trying to practice how to do this thing, and just did it for a hobby. Taught myself through like Ultimate Guitar and YouTube, and just looking up different worship songs and just practicing here and there. And just all of high school was just me dabbling in worship music, and that's all I loved. That's all I listened to. And I think that's where I really developed this desire to like do music, but specifically in the context of a church, right? And then when I went to college, I kind of took a break from, serving and singing and things like that. I think I wanted to take some time to, explore my identity outside of church, because I was there every week, every weekend, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, just like nonstop. Any chance that I could get, I would drive over to the church and just be there and jam, play music, things like that. So my freshman year, I just wanted to like, chill out and kind of like see what else was out there and things like that. So then a big thing that was kind of popping off back then was those reality singing shows, like American Idol, The Voice, and specifically in Korea, it was K-pop Star and Superstar K, like all these like audition shows. So I auditioned for, I think it was K-pop Star 3. And I remember going in, I was like, I think a part of me was afraid to try. So what I did was, if I'm being real, completely real, I went in not prepared, and I was just like, you know what? like, I'm just going to try. But if I get rejected, at least I'll be able to say like, oh, I didn't practice, so I didn't like really commit. You know, it was like a very insecure like way of jumping into like this audition thing. In hindsight, I'm like, oh, I probably should have practiced and tried harder. But I was like just an insecure college kid. But I went in, sang a song, and it was almost soul crushing. Like the judge was like, I think he was the producer. He was like, I'll never forget it because it was so like traumatizing. He was like, when you started playing guitar, I thought you would be really good, but you're not a good singer. And I was like, oh gosh, that's like brutal, you know, that's like hard to hear. So then I remember leaving just crushed, and then like seeing other people in the community that are my friends, they're making it, you know, like they made it through the next round. And, you know, I think they only picked like 2 or 3, but yeah, that was a moment where
that is brutal.
It is brutal.
How old were you
sure.
during this time?
I think I was 17.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I was 16, 17, just young. Just because I think I started late. I started music a little bit later than I think most. But I went to go eat, and I remember sitting there and just thinking to myself, like, man, maybe music just isn't it. And contemplating, Jesus. Like, this is not for me. I'm not good. Like, you know, just a very, like, I like sulked a lot. But I think thankfully I still had like worship music. So I really clinged on to that / like I just like felt like I could do that. But at the same time, it was a moment of like, man, is this it? Like, is this all I'll ever be able to do? So then, you know, you get over it, you know, you kind of get over those moments and keep going. And a part of me, I think I always like to bounce back. So I like played basketball in high school and things like that. So a lot of my outlook on music, I think, is very correlated to like this competitive kind of like drive, but not necessarily to compete with others, but to compete with myself. You know what I mean? Like when I fall and when I like hear something like that, am I gonna respond by saying like, he's right, like the producer was right, and I don't deserve to do music, and I'm not an artist, and I can't do this? Or am I gonna get up and say like, I'm a prove him wrong, you know, type of thing? My answer, I think I was kind of like in the middle. I didn't have this strong sense of like, I need to prove this guy wrong, but at the same time, I didn't crumble. So I kept doing music here and there. Obviously, my confidence was a little shot, but I just kept going. I just did the best that I could in the moment. And another show reached out, like I think a year later. So Superstar K reached out, and you know, I had a little bit of trauma from the K-pop star thing. So I was like, I'm not sure. I'm not sure if I want to do this. So I actually told them no. I was like, I'm not going to audition. Like, no, thank you. And then another year went by, and
so you were going to be a plant on the Superstar K show because they reached out to you.
Yeah, they reached out to me and was like, we found your covers, because I started making covers and posting them online and things like that. And that's another story too. Like my first ever cover, I got like a whole lot of dislikes on it because it was just not good. And even that, you know, just so many moments where I was like, oh, I think this is not it. But you know, I just kept posting. I kept posting covers and things like that. And these like producers and story writers reached out and were like, you know, we want you on the show. Like we would love for you to. At the time, they had auditions in New York.
That's how a lot of these reality shows are for, like, you know, American Idol. They'll reach out to people who are really good singers just so that it can be more competitive.
Right. So they had auditions in New York. So they were wondering if I could fly up or whatever and like audition and things like that. And I was just kind of like, no. I mean, one is kind of like out of the way. And two, like, you know, like I said, like so many moments where I doubted myself. Like I was like, this is not it, you know? But the next year they reached out again and they were just like, hey, we're coming to Atlanta. Like we're holding auditions in Atlanta and we want you to audition. And I wish I could say like I had more confidence, but I genuinely didn't. And I was like, I don't know. I'm not sure. You know, like just very like not sure about anything. And I think that was my process of like finding myself. But also it was really cool because the producers were very persistent. I think they, like the K-pop star thing, there was 2 rounds for the Atlanta auditions. And they were just like, hey, don't worry about the first one. Just come to the second one. And we just want to hear you sing, things like that. And it was funny. It was a cool experience. I learned a lot. What had happened was it was at like this Korean building that I think they held K-Fest there. I'm not sure of the exact location, but they were just like, have a pop song ready, which when they say pop song, it's like an English song and then
of course,
and then a Korean song for you. And I was like, okay, I'll just prepare 2 songs. If you're auditioning for anything, never just prepare 2 songs.
Oh
no, you got to be ready. So
you got to have, because they might say, hey, can you sing another song?
Exactly. And that's what ended up happening. So I sang the 2 songs that I had prepared. So I think I prepared like Love Me Like You Do by Ellie Goulding.
Oh, that's a good one.
Yeah. So I like did an acoustic kind of like male version of that. And then I sang like a 21 song.
Okay.
So back then 21 was big. So I did the 21 song in Korean. And then after I sang those 2, they were like, oh, awesome. Can we hear something more? And I was like, oh, shoot. I'm not sure. But I had been practicing Thinking Out Loud by Ed Sheeran for, I don't know, months and months and months, just because I really love that song. So I was like, okay, I'll sing this. So I sang that and they really liked that one. They asked me for another one. And I was like, oh, shoot, what'd I do? And then it got to a point where like I had nothing left. Like I only, like, keep in mind that all I listened to was worship music at this time. So all I had in my back pocket was worship music. So I ended up singing like a couple worship songs for them and they're like, oh, that's interesting. So I'm feeling some type of way. They're like, okay, thank you. We'll be in touch, but when they say we'll be in touch, you never know. Like they might just ghost you,
Oh, of course.
So,
yeah.
So I left. And I went to another cafe and it was similar feelings as K-pop star. I just sat there and I was like, it wasn't as bad as the other one, but I did not feel good about it. I was just like, this is not it. I think I'm just going to stick to worship, things like that. In May, I flew out to Europe with my family. Like you're seeing the scenery of Europe and I was just getting nostalgic and like, not nostalgic, but like I was just like in my feels. And I was like, man, I really want to do music.
Yeah, Europe has that effect on you, doesn't it?
Yeah, it really does. And I was like, man, wouldn't it be nice? And it was just that. And then in June, I remember I came back home and it was like early in the morning because I was jet lagged. And I get a call from one of the producers and they're like, hey, we want to fly you out. And you made the audition. You're one of 3 people that we picked from Atlanta. This, that. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is actually crazy. This is like, I remember, so I think I'm like a sophomore in college or something like that. I think I was 19.
Going to school?
I was at Georgia State. I was commuting.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. And I think I had just gotten into UGA and I was getting ready to like start the semester and things like that. But it was like a dream come true for real. Like in high school, like back, like so many emotions of like, dang, the K-pop star producer told me I wouldn't, like I was a bad singer and like, wasn't good enough. And then other moments where I like didn't feel good enough. And then, like getting a call from a producer to say like, hey, we want you on our show and we want to fly you out, put money into you and like fly you out pretty much. And I was like, yes, let's do it. So long story short, like I fly out to Korea. I didn't know this, but they have an audition to be on the actual show. Like another audition to see who they want to like put on and stuff like that. So like I had to do a couple more auditions before the actual like TV airing, but pretty much auditioned. I got 2 yeses and 2 nos and it was crazy too because like I think there were 4 judges. 2 of them were kind of like producers and then 2 of them were like pure vocalists. And the vocalists just like crapped on me. They were like, you're not a good singer, man. You can't just get by with tone and things like that. And I didn't understand that because I didn't understand vocals. In hindsight, I realized, they're right. Like there is a technical aspect to singing and it's not just about how you sound. It's about how you kind of maneuver and like sing your song. So like it was a good learning experience, but you know, like I think as someone whose confidence was already shot, it was tough. And getting like 2 yeses and 2 nos, it was kind of like, oh, I barely made it. And, you know, like you start to play this comparison game. I think these shows really perpetuate like the comparison game of like comparing yourself with other artists and things like that.
You don't say.
Yeah, no, seriously. So, but it was cool because I was surrounded by just amazing singers and songwriters, and they very much understood and were more seasoned than I was in music. So I made the round and then went to like Super Week, which is kind of like American Idol's, like where they put you in like a camp for a week and you just have to keep on performing. So I got dropped that first round, came back home. I had taken the semester off of school just because I made it through the round. And then I was like thinking about my life and I was like, whoa, I didn't get as far as I wanted to, but I got farther than I thought. I think that's what I always tell myself. And it was kind of like, for some reason, it was a confidence boost. And I was like, I think I can do this. I think, still wasn't sure. But I learned within myself, I didn't love music. What I loved was what the music brought me, right? So attention, fame, following, clout, like all those things. Like I think I was very much intrigued and in love with that rather than the actual process of music, the actual emotions of music. Does that make sense? Like all of that.
I'm so glad you said that, because there are so many people who go into music for that reason.
Mm-hmm. And it was a moment for me to say, like, I need to be real with myself. And I think it was cool to be surrounded by music lovers because it made me realize I wasn't one. So that next semester, I told myself, you know what? Like, let me figure out how, I don't know. It's like, it's kind of weird to say, but let me figure out how to fall in love with this. Like, because if it's about the following the numbers and like all that, I'm going to quit.
Yep.
And I knew that. I knew that I was going to quit because it's just so discouraging to compare yourself in numbers and all this and that. So I just like jumped straight in. I was like, how do I learn more about this and like see the process and whatnot? And that's when I started to like really get into production. And I was interested in audio engineering and like vocal recording and things like that. Before then, I was just like singing in front of like a camera and stuff. So I switched majors to entertainment and media studies. I felt like that was the closest thing to music and entertainment. And then I had like a certificate in music business, which was, still business, but it was more so an avenue of like, what is tour management? What does a manager do? What is a booking agent? Like, all the ins and outs of music, on the business side. So I learned all that in college. And I think this is where Chris and I met. Well, Chris and I met a while ago just because we were going to church together and he was a part of like the adult worship team and I was a part of the youth worship team. And, we like knew each other in passing. I knew he was a very phenomenal like piano player. I actually didn't know that he was a producer at the time when I was at church, but he was working with a rapper, Jay Pumbaa, right?
Yep.
And Jay Pumbaa.
Shout out to Jay Pumbaa. Jay Pumbaa is a very good friend of ours. Yeah, he's a very good rapper too.
Mm-hmm. And he needed a feature, and I think he had seen that I was on Superstar K, so he was like, "Hey man, like I just need a male vocalist for this. Would you be down to be on it?" And I was like, "Dude, yeah, for sure." At this time, I was like, "Man, I'm down for anything to get into the studio." So that was, I think, my second time in the studio. So I was like kind of nervous, but Chris was so gracious and he like really walked me through it very well. And he taught me a lot. And I learned a lot of just vocal editing and vocal recording and tracking through him. So I recorded that and then just kind of like, kept taking classes. And there was this one particular class where the final project or like the final for your grade was to pick a specific avenue that you were interested in within the music industry and create a project. So for example, if you wanted to be a booking agent, you would have to pretty much book a tour for an actual artist.
Ooh, that sounds cool.
Yeah, it was so amazing. So like you have all these different people, like someone wanted to be like a show promoter or like a festival promoter. So they would have to book out a venue, find the shows and the acts and things like that, and do that. And it was really like, it was a class that felt very like applicable to the actual industry. And for me, I picked the avenue of artist because I was like, this sounds fun. It kind of gives me an excuse to like write a song and release it. And you get pretty much graded on the quality of your song, but also not only that, because I think a lot of people think it's just about the song. There's a whole marketing and promotional aspect that comes after it, which is just...
People do not realize that until they try it.
Exactly. So pretty much my project was write, produce, release a song on Spotify and then promote it, right?
Yeah.
So I was pretty much like, I reached out to a producer that had worked with me on a cover that I had done. He's a local producer, but he got really busy, and then I didn't know how to write a song, you know? Like it was my first time writing a song. I was like, I don't even know what goes into this. All I knew was covers, and I just had a hard time. And Chris had heard about this project just because Jay Pumbaa's really good friends with the producer I was working with. So Jay Pumbaa knew about it. So Jay Pumbaa told Chris, and it piqued Chris' interest, I think. And he reached out and was like, hey, I heard about some project you're working on and I would love to help you. And it really, one, was an answer to prayer. And two, like he like saved my butt with this school project. But he pretty much had a track ready. He had a top line melody, and all we really needed to do was write lyrics, right? At the time, you know, Chris will tell you this if you guys ever, you know, talk about this, but I told Chris that I was not a songwriter. I said, Chris, I can't write songs and I'll never write songs. I'm not a songwriter. And I just remember we were in, you know, the old apartment that you guys used to live in.
Yep.
In that little room.
That 2-bedroom apartment.
Yeah, 2-bedroom. And he was just like, Kevin, you can do it. Like you can write a song and I believe in you. And like it was like one of those like moments that I don't think I'll ever forget, because it was the start. And it was the first moment where I felt like, man, somebody really like believes in me. And like, it's hard not to get emotional just because Chris was such a big part in this whole music thing. You know what I mean? So anytime I like talk about my journey, like I have to mention Chris because he was the first one. And and I'm so grateful for him.
You hear that, people? VIP Sound Circle was the start.
VIP was the start. It genuinely was the start. So pretty much I did my best. I didn't know what I was doing, but I just did my best. I followed the intuition that I had about what I felt like were good rhymes and things like that. So we wrote If You Knew. That's the first song that I ever released.
It's available on Spotify.
It is available on Spotify, quote unquote, official artist. I don't count this as my first official artist release, just because it was mainly for a school project. I ended up getting like a 90, like a 91 or a 92 because I didn't promote it. You know what I mean? The song, honestly, the song blew out any song that anyone else brought in. Like all the other artists in my class, my song, I think my song was the best, but they promoted it better. So I think some people got better grades. But yeah, I mean, it was cool because it was an amazing experience. And then after that, I graduated. No, actually, I didn't graduate yet. After that, I was just kind of like, oh, that was a cool experience. And, you know, Chris was kind of like, Kevin, we got to get you more songs. We got to keep like releasing songs. And bless his heart, man. Like I was so like insecure and so unsure and didn't know like what I was doing. Like I felt like I was just kind of like figuring it out and like thinking so much about what other people might be saying. So,
and that insecurity always leads to a big single release. And I know the story because the next single would be probably your biggest single to date up to that point, right?
Yes. So then the following year, so I had just like left campus. So I went to the University of Georgia. Go Dogs. We just won the championship. Woo, woo.
Hell yeah.
But I did an internship at a record label in Atlanta. And this is when I was kind of like, oh, what would engineering look like? You know what I mean? Like the more technical aspect. Quickly realized like that is not my forte. So I was like, I don't think engineering's it. I got a little bit of like tour management experience there. And I was like, oh shoot, like there's a lot in this, but everything brought me back to being an artist. And I think the reason why like my singles early on are so spread out is because I just like didn't believe in myself, you know? And I couldn't say that I was an artist because I just knew how much it took and the amount of talent and things like that. So I was like afraid to call myself an artist. So what I did was just, you know, I'll just release a song here and there. I got back into the studio with Chris, and he wrote a song. He wrote this song. It was called Finally Came Around. And he was just like, you know, it's all written. Let me know what you think. And, you know, and I tweaked a bit of the lyrics just so I could sing it better. Like when it comes to like the language, I felt like the language fit me better. So I just fixed a couple things. And I think Chris only had like a verse and a chorus to it. And then we just kind of like got in the studio one night and like stayed up till like, I don't know, 2-3 a.m. just trying to finish writing it, finished it, and then released it and put it out. And it hovered at less than 1,000 for I think a good while. Like I think it was a couple months where it was just less than 1,000 streams. And I was like, you know, if it just hits 1,000, I'll be so happy. I'll be so content. And you know, like I'll really be able to believe that I can be an artist. I don't know. 1,000 was like the golden number for me back then. A year goes by, like a whole year goes by. And for some reason, I don't know what happened, but it just starts to pick up, right?
I think we really start going hard on promoting it at that point.
Yeah. I think it was also like my Instagram was kind of growing too. I remember I was in Korea and I was talking to a label to see if I wanted to sign with them. And that was also a connect through Chris. But just like, you know, promotion, things like that. And then the song just like blew up. It was crazy. Like it went from 1,000 to 10,000, I think in a matter of days. And then 10,000 to 100,000 within the next week. And then it just kept growing.
It is definitely the most successful single to come out of VIP Sound Circle for sure.
Yeah, and I didn't know that.
Yeah, it is the most successful single to come out of our label because right now it's at like close to 700,000 plays. So yeah, it's done very well.
Yeah, Chris was like, "Hey man, I want you to know, like, I think you're one of the only artists that took us positive."
At the time.
So I was like, dude, that's amazing. So I was really like encouraged by that. And from there, you know, just kept releasing music. I started working at the local church that I was at, and you know, just doing that full time. And that was also like a dream come true. Like I was leading worship and, you know, working with students. Like I love working with the next gen and like encouraging them just because I know how much encouragement I needed. So I wanted to like pay that forward and whatnot. So I just like dabbled in writing.
I'm glad you're doing that because one thing a lot of people don't do is send the elevator back down.
Right. Exactly.
You know what I mean?
Exactly. And so yeah, I just kept releasing. I released Can't Change after that, and you know, like just tried my best with the writing stuff. I don't think I'm a natural born writer, but I think it's a muscle that you can develop.
So Can't Change was the first song that you wrote, right?
That I wrote by myself. Yeah. Yeah. And
it's amazing.
I mean, I just like tried it, and then I tried a couple different producers, but ended up coming back to Chris because I didn't really trust anyone else. And Chris made it happen. And I think the song turned out great. It's doing, I think it's close to 200,000 streams. But that was like a whole learning experience in and of itself. And then, just slowly growing the confidence to be able to say like, yeah, I think this is what I want to do. And I want to figure out a way to like make this happen. So I don't know. And but then again, like as much as like I want to say I made things happen, it really was a lot of people around me believing in me. Chris, you, Craig, and it was like,
well, I am Craig.
Yeah. That's what I'm saying. You, Craig.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. You, just believing in me and like investing and things like that.
Well, a lot of it is just us believing in each other. I mean, it's like, you believed in us, we believed in you, and, we worked together, and we're really proud of you. We're so glad that we had a hand in helping you to find the success that you found. I mean, you have like, I'm looking at your monthly listeners now. It's 55,000, which is very good. Out of Luck and Finally Came Around, which are, kind of like your signature songs at this point. I mean, together have over 1 million plays.
Yeah.
And that's really impressive. Like anybody who's out here doing their thing and, who are just finding success and paying it forward. I really like seeing that. And one of the things that you mentioned was you going to various audition shows like K-Pop Star and, Superstar K. Honestly, I think that it's probably for the best that you didn't win those shows, because it's not like people really find much success winning those shows. I mean, K-Pop Star, I mean, I know, like, if you look at The Voice, for instance, like, who has become a household name from winning The Voice? Literally nobody.
Yeah.
Like literally no one. I mean, like no one who's won The Voice has found mainstream success as an artist.
Right.
Okay?
Right.
I mean, they've had 15 seasons of The Voice, and nobody who has won The Voice is anybody I've ever heard of, except, for Cassidy Pope, because she was part of Hey Monday. And I think that she enjoyed more success when she was part of Hey Monday than after winning The Voice. So, I mean, it's kind of like, really the thing is, the stars of these audition shows are the judges.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like they're the
yeah.
stars of the show. And it doesn't seem like the people who win the show end up finding success. I mean, K-pop star Jamie Park, she's a television host. Crystal Yee hasn't found success. Katie Kim hasn't really found much success. Nakjun, not really. I mean, it's kind of like, the people who win K-Pop Star haven't found much success. Nobody who's won The Voice has found any success at all. What about American Idol? I mean, you can name a handful of people who have found success. And I don't know all the reasons as to why people who win these shows don't find success. I don't know all the reasons as to why. It might be they just go into really bad record deals. But I mean, maybe it's for the best that you didn't win.
No, I agree. I mean, I think in the moment, it was obviously disappointing because that's all I saw. But I think in hindsight, it's cool because like, you know how much the music industry has changed. Like, I think especially as an Asian American, like, I think I felt like I needed to go back to my home country to make a name for myself and then kind of cross over, if that, you know what I mean? Like if I could even cross over, but it felt like music would only be successful for me as a Korean in Korea. But that, and you've seen like so many people do that, like Asian Americans or Korean Americans specifically, like fly over to Korea, start doing music, find success, and they just kind of stay there, right? Which is great. And I think they do that. But for me, it just never worked out. And I felt like there were so many more hurdles that I had to overcome in Korea rather than in America. And it really took me to stop and say, like, what is it that Korea offers that like I can't do here in America? And I think that's when the landscape started to change, where there was so much more power for the independent artist to release music. I think release music in general, like it just became a lot more accessible. So in hindsight, like I'm so glad it didn't work out because I can stay here in the States. I love the States. like compared to living in Korea, it just feels more like home to me. And yeah, and I can make music. So I agree with you. Like, I think it really did work out for me not to win or like even like make it really far into it. But yeah, just super thankful for just how like everything's turned out. I think I definitely want to continue growing, and numbers aren't everything, but I think for a certain degree it's like a reflection of it. But yeah, I think knowing my story and knowing where I came from with like the lack of confidence and like not really believing in myself, and like other people in the industry not believing in it, or like me as an artist, and to see like the numbers that I have and to see like how far I've come from there, like I think this podcast like and talking to you was a really good reminder, just because being out here in LA, like been overthinking, I've been like discouraged, whatnot. But
well, I'm really glad that this has been therapeutic.
It
for
was
you.
very much therapeutic to kind of like look at the past and take a trip back memory lane with you.
Absolutely. And like what's really cool about you is like you mentioned, I could have gone back to Korea and become like a big K-pop star. But I mean, one of the things that really I think kind of makes you stand out is there really aren't that many Asian pop singers outside of their home countries doing their thing, like in the English speaking world. I mean, yeah, you have Janae Aiko, you have Zayn Malik, you have yourself, of course. I mean, you have some people who are doing it, but there's not like a lot of, really prominent pop singers of Asian descent.
Yeah, it's a lot of R&B and hip hop.
Yeah. So it's really cool. Have you thought about wanting, like, do you want to get signed to a major? Is that the goal, or are you happy with where you're at right now doing the independent thing?
I think there's a lot more to do as an independent artist. I think I want to still become a better artist or a better writer, and I want to release more music that I am proud of and want to. Yeah, there's just so much left. As an indie artist. So no real big pursuit. I think if the right opportunity came, then I would be open to conversation and things like that. But it's nothing that I'm like really going out of my way to like make happen, if that makes sense.
Yeah, you want to be real careful about signing your life away when it comes to a record deal. Yeah.
For sure.
Have you kept in touch with some of the people that you've worked with, like Sarah Kong? Because you did a song with her, Drive.
Yeah,
like, have you kept in touch with her?
Sarah and I actually met up in New York when I was there last winter, or this past winter. And she's doing so well. Like, I'm so happy for her. One of her songs, I think it's Summers for Falling in Love, just like
4 million plays.
Yeah, 4 million plays. She's at like 350 plus like monthly listeners, and it's just so cool to see her succeed, and like knowing her story, and yeah, she's just such a phenomenal like songwriter and artist, and I learn so much from her every time I meet up with her. But yeah, I think we've established a good friendship, and yeah, I saw her recently.
Absolutely. Well, here's hoping that you two work together again.
Yeah,
I really like that song a lot. So, well, Kevin, this has been great. Thank you so much for coming on the show. And you guys definitely need to check out Kevin's music. All the links for Kevin are going to be in the description below if you're listening to this on YouTube. For Kevin Chung, I am Craig Reeves, and thank you for listening.